Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishna Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishna Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Acharya Devi Krishna Shunyavadi Asatya Sacharini Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Bhaktivinoda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Does anybody know where it came from? How long ago? 6, 7 years. Oh, we need some new drums. This one is officially dead. You can bury it now and get a new one. Not supposed to sound like that. It's supposed to sound... Sounds like a bongo. Heard a bongo? This would be a good bongo drum, but not in a drum. Well, maybe you just need more money.
It's tight. Water can be.
No, not about tight. Something's not right. Maybe more job, I don't know. It's not broken. Hare Krishna. So, today we are gathered here to talk about the holy name. First thing, well, today a devotee wrote me, he was going to be giving a workshop on the obstacles to chanting, and he asked me what are the obstacles, and I listed many obstacles. I forgot to list one obstacle that I think we haven't discussed yet. And that's the obstacle of not appreciating or taking for granted. Because anything you take for granted, you don't really give your heart to, right? I always give the example of a 10 rupee pen and a gold pen. If I give you a 10 rupee pen, I'm pretty much certain when I come back next year you won't have that pen. If I give you a 50,000 rupee gold pen, I'm pretty sure when I come back next year you'll have the pen. Yes? So how you treat something is often based on how much value you give to it. And sometimes when we mistreat something or some people, it's because we're giving less value. Yes? You agree? Now, one of the reasons that we may not value the holy name is because perhaps we're not having profound experiences every day. And perhaps we're not knowledgeable about what the holy name is, theologically speaking, philosophically speaking, shastrically speaking. But for those who actually relish the chanting of the holy name, the pure devotees, they say that the holy name is my life and soul, and it's my greatest treasure. So, ladies and gentlemen, Prabhus and Matajis or Mamas and Papas, if I ask you, what's the most valuable thing you have? What would you say? Your husband, your wife, your car, your job, your brand new 3,000 centimeter TV. What's the most valuable thing you have? Your new guitar, your new silk kurta. What is it? It's interesting, right? If I ask you what's the most valuable thing, well, the first thing that comes to your mind, will it be the holy name? Because if it isn't, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. That should be the first thing. Right? Okay, what's the most valuable thing you have? It's right here. Here in this bag is the most valuable thing I have. Sometimes Prabhupada used to say, this is your ticket back to Godhead. Well, if you had a ticket back to Godhead and I asked you, what's the most valuable thing and you have in your house, you wouldn't say your gold earrings. You'd say, that ticket back to Godhead. Somehow I got the ticket. That's amazing. I've got the ticket back to Godhead. That has to be the most valuable thing. Here, the most valuable thing. One time Prabhupada, he wrote to one of his disciples, he chanted on his beads, and he said, these beads are your connection. Wow, must be valuable. This is my connection. You have another ticket. One says back to Godhead, and one says your connection with Krishna. Certainly the most valuable. Yes? So, I think we can be safe to say that those who chant their rounds, those who chant good rounds every day, give a lot of value to the holy name. And the perennial question or the perennial challenge is how to control the mind when chanting. But when we look at it within the context of giving it value, if you really valued it, why would your mind be somewhere else? Right? Does that make sense? Let's say you were in love with someone, but they didn't know it. And they were in love with you, and you didn't know it. And then both of you finally found out. Because all you'd be thinking about is one another, isn't it? No matter what you do, you'd be thinking about one another. So, if we increase the appreciation, and especially when we're chanting, if we realize the value of what we're doing, it's going to be much easier to be focused. Okay, let's give an example. Today, I had an amazing sabji cooked by Dear Krishna's wife, made from besan flour. It looked like curd chunks, but it was besan flour. Swimming in an ocean of ghee and spices. So when I was eating this, I was going into samadhi. If you know what I mean. You ever been in eating samadhi? Like, if something is so good, the only thing you can think about is the taste of that, isn't it? Yes? Just an example. Just an example. If something is appreciated, it tends to get your mind fixed on it. Right? So if we can appreciate the value of the holy name, the opportunity we have, what it's producing, it's going to be very easy to be absorbed in it. If we take it for granted, then there's a chance or a good possibility that we'll chant like we're taking it for granted. Right? It's okay if I don't chant good rounds. I can always chant good rounds next year. Or when I'm old and I retire and I move to the Holy Dawn. Then I can chant good rounds. Now I have to work hard. I'll just get them done somehow or other. Yeah. So that's the sign that we're not appreciating. Now, I made a calculation. I think it came out to something like Mahaprabhu appears once every 8 billion years. So the prema nam that Mahaprabhu gives comes once every 8 billion years. That's kind of rare, isn't it? The holy name comes every Kali Yuga, but not the prema nam, not the nam that gives love, the mood of the residents of Braja. So this is really special. And it's quite rare if something happens once every 8 billion times, right? That's basically like one person on the planet. Like there's almost 8 billion now, 7 point something. So it's one person on the planet. That's rare. So every 8 billion years Mahaprabhu comes. And then everyone, after he comes, in that Kali Yuga, gets it, not before, after. So, guess what? We are in the right place at the right time. Yes? And if we don't take advantage of it, we may have to wait 8 billion more years. And if we're lucky, we'll be in the right place at the right time. We won't take birth in Kali Yuga before, or on some other planet, Mahaprabhu, but after. So, that's very special. That's why, was it Narottam Das Thakur? Was it Lochan Das Thakur? Narottam Das Thakur, right? Although taking human birth, is it Narottam Das Thakur? Lochan Das Thakur. Although taking human birth, drinking poison, thinking I could be happy. Hari Hari Vipale Janamadaya Manusha Janamapaya Radha Krishna Bhajiya Jaya Shunya Vishwa. I know. I didn't serve Radha and Krishna. I just drank poison instead. Yeah. It's a graphic example, but that's the example he's given. You have this opportunity and I didn't take it. So it's very important to appreciate, because it's very easy to take it for granted, isn't it? We've been a devotee so many decades that we can take it for granted. And the Shastras glorify the power of the holy name. There's a nice verse by Jiva Goswami, which I find so interesting. He says that the holy name is the greatest, something like the greatest jewel or the greatest wealth in Krishna's treasury. That's the most, in other words, it's the most valuable thing Krishna has in his treasury. That's amazing, right? In other words, if you had darshan with Krishna and you requested him, please give me the most valuable thing that you have, he would pull out a mantra card. Here we go here. Here's a mantra card. Chant Hare Krishna. This is the most valuable thing I have. Jagannath Swami ki jai. And you'd be like, wait a minute, I thought you were going to pull out Chintamani gems and, fulfill any desire I have, or give me a copper Vikshakshini, or at least a gold necklace. And all you did was give me a little mantra card. That's the most valuable thing you have. Yeah, that's the most valuable thing I have. Because the most valuable thing any jiva can have is their relationship with Krishna. And this mantra card will give you your relationship with Krishna. Yes? So it's the most valuable thing we have. One time, a devotee was chanting. So Prabhupada was he was in the room with Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, "Are you listening? When you chant, are you listening?" In other words, are you spacing out? Or are you actually hearing? I mean, are you actually chanting? Or does it just look like you're chanting? Something like that. Are you really chanting, or just like making a show of it? And he said, "No, Prabhupada, I'm listening." And Prabhupada said, "You should listen every word of the mantra when you chant, because this chanting is the essence of our philosophy." That's an interesting statement. Chanting is, when you think of chanting, you don't think of philosophy, do you? And Prabhupada saying chanting is the essence of philosophy, because the whole philosophy is ultimately to bring us to the point of pure chanting. So therefore, if you're chanting purely, you've realized the essence of, or you've come to the siddhanta of bhakti. The last verse of Bhagavatam is about the holy name. So it's the essence. And our aspiration is supposed to be to chant Shuddhanam. Every day you chant your rounds, it's another opportunity to try to chant Shuddhanam. It's not another opportunity just to get your rounds done. But it's an opportunity to come closer to Shuddhanam, isn't it? Oh, tomorrow morning I have another chance. Maybe I'll chant one name. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, just chant once, chant the name. Once. Like once chant Shuddhanam. That's like, you can get there once. That could finish your material life off and put you on another path. Even once, just taste it. Or if you could chant Shuddhanam once, the taste would be so amazing, you could never forget it. And you'd be hankering after it your whole life, like Narada Muni was hankering because he saw Krishna. So every day when we wake up, we should think, don't think, oh, it's so early, I don't want to get up, it's so cold, or it's too hot, or whatever. We should think. We should think, I'm a devotee, that's amazing. I'm so fortunate. Here's another day to chant the holy name. And there's, 8 million people in this city, or 10 million, or whatever. And there's a few thousand that are chanting the holy name, and I'm one of those few thousand. I'm so fortunate. Of all my friends, I'm the only one who became a devotee. At least for me. I don't know about for you, but I think for a lot of devotees. I'm so fortunate. So that will empower your japa tremendously. So that's an obstacle to good japa, is not to appreciate, just to take it for granted. Yes? Any questions so far? Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for this. One question is if we think about this thing that I am the only one who is taking the holy name, then does it introduce a sense of false ego within us?
Oh, very good question. In the Bhagavad, he's asking, well, what if I think I'm special because I'm only one amongst a few thousand in a city of 10 million that has the holy name? You can think you're special and it can make you humble. And you can think you're special and it can make you proud. It's kind of like eating something and he digests it and he doesn't digest it, and it's the same thing. So it's how you digest it. It's so interesting in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said in the age of Kali, even a pauper is proud of his penny. That's, 3 P's. A pauper is proud of it. It's like a rap. And the pauper is proud of his penny. Sometimes Sanskrit is like that. Sanskrit shlokas. Pam, 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 pam. And sometimes the verses are in meters, and the meter is the sound of what's happening in the verse. That a pauper is proud of his penny. So, as far as pride is concerned, nothing can make a humble person proud, and anything can make a proud person proud, isn't it? We were talking about that a few days ago. So yes, there is a chance that you could become proud, but it could also humble you like anything. I'm so fortunate. I don't deserve this. This is amazing. And if you don't feel that way, at least understand that's how you should feel. And if you feel proud, then that kind of ruins everything. Because it's almost like you're using the holy name to boost your ego, which would be an offense, right? Because then you become, you're using the holy name, you're becoming the master of the holy name rather than the servant. Holy names, it's increasing my reputation, so I'm using it for my own business. Yeah. You see, when we chant, there's supposed to be some feeling that Krishna, without you, I can't be Krishna conscious. That feeling of dependency is a manifestation of humility. So without humility, you can't really chant properly. Because the meaning of the mantra is Krishna help me. And there's some people who are either atheistic or very proud think, I'll do it myself, I don't need God. Right? You ever met those people? Why you need God? You go to temple and pray, you're just weak. I can just do it, Work, make it happen. Okay, there's some truth to that, but not the complete truth. So, the devotee is praying, Krishna, please help me. I need help, I'm fallen, I'm conditioned. I'm pulled by Maya, I'm pulled by my senses, by my mind. Please help me. It requires humility, because I'm admitting my weakness and I'm admitting that there's a power above me who I depend on. And that's how you chant, so if you're not humble. If you use the chanting to boost your ego, what a paradox is that? Right? Because the only real way to chant is in that mood of Krishna, help me, I'm weak. Which is a fact, we are weak. So it's a mood of being empowered. Yes? Empowered. Hare Krishna. Everyone watching on Facebook gets to see the deities. Now, yeah, which is a nice backdrop. You can see Prabhupada also. Anything else? Yes.
I was hearing about Radhanath Swami Maharaj's picture. I was reading. So from that I was hearing about Haridas Thakur
Haridas Thakur.
and Narottam Das Thakur. They were blaspheming him like anything. And he was always tolerant, and he was always humble. It was not like internally, it was something else, an issue and something else. But how is that?
How is it that Thakur Haridas could tolerate blasphemy? Haridas Thakur and Narottam Das Thakur. In order to tolerate you're saying they tolerated the intolerable, basically. Yeah, or at least what would be intolerable. They tolerated what would be intolerable for us. Yeah, you have to see everything as Krishna's arrangement to be able to do that. And you have to be very humble. Because tolerance is one of the essential ingredients of humility. So generally the devotee thinks, whatever happening to me really is only a token of what should happen. And Krishna's being very kind, and he's only giving me a token. Now, most of us think whatever bad is happening to us, we don't deserve it. It's unfair. The world is unfair, isn't it? Why did this happen to me? I don't deserve it. I'm a good person. I do good work. I shouldn't have to suffer. But a pure devotee thinks exactly the opposite, which is why he can tolerate. I deserve worse. So someone is criticizing you, and if you're a pure devotee, you think, I deserve this and worse. And Krishna, he's so kind because I'm so proud that he's sending someone who doesn't like me to tell me all the bad things about me, just so I can be humble. Otherwise, I'll probably never become humble. You know, it's difficult to become humble. So Krishna's sending this nice wife, nice husband, nice mother-in-law, nice boss, nice teacher, whoever it is, to tell you how foolish you are, the wrong things that you do, and so forth. And then we think, thank you, Krishna. I needed this. So that way we see everything as Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's mercy. I mean, if you can see it as mercy, it is mercy. And if you can see it as mercy, then in that sense there's nothing to tolerate. It's just mercy. And you don't tolerate mercy, right? We do this course in forgiveness, and then we understand as we go through the course that every situation in life has a lesson. So if somebody mistreats you, it's just an opportunity to learn how to be more tolerant, to learn how to be forgiving, and to see it as a divine arrangement. And when you see it that way, you come to a point of realizing, well, actually there's no one to forgive. It was just a lesson. It was supposed to happen that way. And when we talk about, sometimes when we talk about forgiving, it's kind of a paradox or an oxymoron, because on a higher level of consciousness, you don't see anything outside of Krishna's arrangement. So how would you forgive something? You can't forgive Krishna's arrangement. Or you see it as a karmic reaction. How can you forgive a karmic reaction? You did something to me in my last life. Here I am in this life to pay you back. So you deserved it. So how could you forgive me now for doing it? It's just what you're getting as a consequence of your past. So that's the highest way of seeing it. So in that sense, even forgiveness and tolerance are only there in a sense. It only seems like they're forgiving and tolerating. But actually, in their mind, there's nothing to tolerate or forgive. It's all perfect. That's a high level. But you asked how Haridas Thakur does it. You didn't ask so much how we do it. That's how he does it. If you ask how we do it, might be the same explanation, but might be some added detail. But the part that it's a lesson, that's definitely for us. We all need to become more humble, right? So if someone makes us humble, embarrasses us or whatever, if you're, strong enough to think that this is good for me, it helps me, I deserve it, then you'll make it. You'll appreciate it. Otherwise, you're going to attack the person, right? What are your two options? Be humble, take it as Krishna's mercy, or attack the person. And who suffers when you attack the person? You or the person? We read something today. It said anger is, what does it say? Anger is causing your own suffering because of the mistakes of another person. Person does something wrong, you get upset with him. So because of his mistake, you just cause yourself suffering. Right? Isn't that interesting? What does it say? Anger is you punish yourself for the mistake of another person. I think that's what it said. Because we're angry and we suffer the anger, the pain of the anger, or the pain of intolerance, or the pain of resentment, or the pain of envy. I was talking to a devotee today and he sent me a Facebook message. That some devotees were acting in ways which were difficult for him to deal with because he didn't feel they were indicative of the behavior of senior devotees, so it was upsetting him. And I wrote him and I said, Jagannath Swami ki jai. Jai Jagannath. I said, if we don't learn how to deal with imperfect devotees, we're going to have a problem because we're going to be contacting imperfect devotees for the rest of our life. So we might as well learn how to deal with them because it's just, we're all imperfect. So you might as well learn how to deal with it. So our whole life, we're going to be running into devotees who are going to do something we don't approve of. And it could happen every month, it could happen every week, it could happen every day, it could happen 3 times a day, because we're imperfect. You know, I hear so many stories of devotees doing things which sometimes I think most non-devotees wouldn't even do what that devotee did. How do you deal with it? We have to learn how to deal with it because it's a reality that's going to always come up, right? Why is that devotee doing that? He's been a devotee for 25 years. He shouldn't be doing that. But we're actually trained to say, why am I doing this? I've been a devotee for more than 1 week, or whatever it is, I shouldn't be doing this. That's how we're supposed to be thinking, right? Okay, so I look around, I see imperfect devotees, but I look in the mirror, I also see another imperfect devotee. So why don't I work on that one? Because I can't work on the other ones. Because I can't come up to you and go, I've been noticing this thing that's wrong with you, why don't you correct it? You're going to be really happy, right, that I told you that. And you're going to be really upset. Who does he think he is? Just coming up to me and telling me there's something wrong with me. So, even if that devotee is imperfect, what can you do? The one thing we can do is deal with the problem that we see the problem, and we're focused on the problem, and then when we focus on the problem, then that problem becomes a problem for us. It's like you have a problem, now I'm focused on your problem, so your problem now becomes my problem. So I'm like, that's stupid. That was fine, Before I came to the temple and saw you, everything was great. Now I see you doing something stupid, and I'm obsessed with it, and I'm meditating. How can he do? He's been a devotee all his life. Look what he's doing. This is so bad. What's our movement coming to? I think they should kick him out of the temple. And my mind's going like this, right? Have you ever had that experience? And what's so ironic is, what I'm doing now is worse than what you did. Because whatever you did, you just did and stopped. And I'm continuing thinking about what you did. So I'm being worse than you. Right? You know, the story of the monk who carries the lady across the water, and the other monk who carries the lady in his mind for 2 hours. You know that story? The monk carries the lady from one side of the river to the other, and the monk that's with him, he's thinking, how could you do that? You touched a woman. And 2 hours later, he says, how could you do that? You carried a woman across the water. He said, I only carried her for 5 minutes, you've been carrying her for 2 hours. So he was worse than him. So I'm meditating on your fault. You know, you did something stupid, you ate with your left hand or whatever. How could you eat with your left hand? That's so low class, you know, just like thinking of it. You know. You only ate for 20 minutes, and I'm thinking of it for 20 days. So who is worse, me or you? So the point is, it's a reality that devotees are imperfect. And we're going to run into imperfect devotees the rest of our lives. And we're going to have a strategy to deal with it in a way that we don't make offenses, we don't become proud. But we become either neutral or even better, understanding and patient and so forth. And I will end that little speech by saying, it's not easy. I don't want you, oh, it's easy for you, Mahatma Prabhu. You're telling us to do that. Yeah, because you can do it, because you're a Prabhupada disciple. But what about us? This is not practical. You can't expect us to do this. No. I admit it's not easy. And I don't think whoever's disciple you are makes it any easier necessarily. It's just hard. False ego is, it's always there, so it's difficult. But it's just because it's difficult doesn't undermine the fact that it's necessary. And I think that's the important thing to focus on, that it's necessary. Because sometimes when something's difficult, we kind of write it off, like you can't do it. But if it's difficult, at least appreciate it's still necessary. No matter how difficult it is, it's still necessary, so we have to figure out how to do it, right? I'm sure you all agree there are many imperfect devotees in ISKCON. You all agree? We're all conditioned souls taking our showers, trying to get pure. So you're going to be running into a lot of imperfect devotees. And Prabhupada said something quite amazing. He said, if you want to find fault with me, you can find fault with me. Even in the pure devotee, if you have that vision, you can find fault. So, it's not because the person has a fault that we find fault. It's because we're fault finders. That's the reason. And we think the reason is the person has a fault. It's not the reason. The reason is we're fault finders. So we find the fault. And the faults are everywhere. Everybody has them. That's what fault finding means. It's not sightseeing. It's fault finding. It's like, you're searching for it. It's not like, the gold is just, out there on the river. You gotta go dig for it, right? So, what did I call that? Panning for gold. Yeah, so we're panning for faults. You have to do some panning. Yes? And our excuse is, well, I don't have to really look for the fault, they're just obvious. So you can't blame me for seeing your faults, because they're just so obvious. But that's a foolish excuse, right? And even if they are obvious, doesn't mean you have to focus on them. But we have that kind of excuse, well, if they're obvious, you just see them. And so I'm focusing on them. No, the problem is I'm focusing on them. The problem is not that you have a problem. The Problem is I'm focused on your problem. Right? Does that make sense? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
One teacher said, not a devotee, but he wisely said, when you find fault with another person, it says more about you than it does about them. It says more about your tendency to find fault, your need to find fault. This is an interesting word to use, right? I have a need to find fault. Raise your hand if you have a need to find fault. We all, if we're finding fault, we must have a need. Right? It's like an itch, it satisfies us. Yeah, I need to scratch that. So, it says more about our need to find fault, or our tendency to find fault, than it does about the person's fault. Yes? Otherwise, why would you find fault? I mean, the fault's there, but why would you meditate on it? What's the point? Must be some need there. So self-reflection, when you find fault, self-reflect. Oh, I must have a problem that I need to focus on a fault. Problems with me, it's not with them. You agree? And what's worse is if it makes you feel good to find faults. Makes you feel better, and then by feeling better, you feel good. Because humility is not about feeling better than the other devotees. I'm better than you. I was initiated before you. I know more shlokas. I'm better than you. That makes me feel good to know I'm better than you. Actually, if we were Krishna conscious, it would make us feel bad for us to think that I'm better than other devotees, because we want to think we're servants. Right? So, if I get some pleasure from finding fault, there's something wrong with that picture. If you're not a devotee, that's nothing wrong with that picture. That's just the picture. That's just how it is. But now that you're a devotee, there's something wrong with that picture. You've got this tilak on, you've got a kunti malan, sometimes dhoti kurta, shari choli. And still I'm finding fault. There's something wrong with that picture. They're an ordinary person on the street, that's what they do. Right? Listen to the news about all the bad things going on, and you get some rasa from listening to bad news. Right? That's normal. Hey Prabhu, you know what happened to him? You want to hear what he's doing? Yeah, tell me. I mean, there's something wrong with that tendency. Yes? Did you hear what happened? No, what happened? Oh, Maharaj, you won't believe what happened to Maharaj. Tell me, what happened? I can't tell you. No, tell me. You already started telling me, you have to tell me. So, yeah. And a pure devotee, I think it was Raghunath Das Goswami, he vowed that he would never hear any criticism of a devotee. So you see the difference? Like, And if we don't know how to deal with this, then the faults of others are going to really disturb us. How is this devotee acting this way? That's not right. He shouldn't act this way. Yes? It's not proper. How can he call himself a devotee? He shouldn't act like this. These kinds of things. And then that occupies our consciousness. And that's so unfortunate, isn't it? You come to the Krishna conscious movement, here you have the association of devotees, and then you're thinking ill of those devotees. I just read something today, so funny. There was a devotee, I forget who, and it's not even relevant. Even if I know who it was, I probably wouldn't mention his name. But anyway, this devotee was having a problem with two devotees, Brahmananda and Shyamasundar. He was having a problem with them. There was no detail, but he was having some problem. And Prabhupada said, you better reconcile the problem with them, because when you go back to Godhead, they're going to be there. You might think, oh no, if they're going back to Godhead, I don't want to go. No, they're going to be there, you have to reconcile. Jai Jagannath Swami. And so it's really, I think, what we can take from this discussion is that if someone has a fault and that we're becoming obsessed with their fault, then we should be very aware that the real problem is with us. Yes? Not with them. Okay, what they've done is wrong. That's one thing. But we're obsessed with it. That's not a sign of a healthy consciousness. Trinadapi sunicena. We're supposed to be more tolerant than a tree. We can't tolerate another's fault. We have to think about it, talk about it. Criticize them for having a fault. Right? Does that make sense? And Mahaprabhu is saying to chant the holy name purely, you have to be humble. So, overcoming fault finding is part of the process of being humble. And the first offense is the blasphemy. So it's definitely going to affect our chanting, the relationship we have with other devotees. Now, it's not necessary to have a close relationship or even a good relationship with everyone. It's just necessary not to have a bad relationship, not to think negatively. I may see you and think, oh, here's a nice devotee. Doesn't mean I want to spend the day with you. But at least I don't think ill of you. I just think, oh, here's a nice devotee. It's not my type of devotee. Not my style. Not my mood. But nevertheless a nice devotee. As opposed to, oh, look at that devotee. He's this, he's that. I don't like him. That's actually offensive. And it comes from the wrong consciousness. Right? So if there's any devotee you don't like, it's actually affecting your chanting. Isn't that interesting? And scary. Isn't that interesting? There's some devotee I don't like. And that's, affecting my japa. Like if I like that devotee, my japa would be better. Wow, that's interesting. Isn't it? Hey Prabhu, can we be friends? Because I want to chant good japa tomorrow. That's interesting. Right? So the Padma Purana states there are different kinds of offenses that you can make to a devotee. And one offense is not to be happy to see. You walk in the temple and, oh no, so Prabhu's there, I'm going home. I don't want to see his face. No, that's an offense. I respect so-and-so Prabhu as a devotee. I may not like the way he thinks or the things he does, but I respect him as a devotee. I'm happy he's a devotee. And what's even worse is so-and-so Prabhu may be pleasing his spiritual master. And his spiritual master may be my spiritual master. And it's quite strange not to like someone who your spiritual master likes, isn't it? That's really weird, don't you think? But your Guru Maharaj loves him. I don't care, I hate him. No, you should care. Your Guru Maharaj loves him. You should love him also. Right? Does that make sense? But sometimes we see that we don't like somebody, but our spiritual master does. And then now we don't like our spiritual master because he likes him. I'm speaking from personal experience here. Yeah. And that's really a problem. Yeah. Anything else on any topic? Yes.
In the context of we suffer the reactions for our past misdeeds. So what should be our approach towards diseases? Go on suffering, tolerating, or go to doctor?
Both. Karma is, well, it will depend on the devotee's faith, but the general principle is you take the necessary precaution or remedy, and you depend on Krishna, and you understand that you can only do your best, and there may be some karmic consequence that the time is just going to take. So Prabhupada was actually asked this question. He said, go to the doctor and pray to Krishna. He didn't say, go to the doctor and pray to the doctor. Oh, doctor, save me. He said, go to the doctor and pray, Krishna, you save me. But maybe you heard this conversation. So this devotee is telling Prabhupada that Prahlad Maharaj was eating food or prasadam, he offered it, and it had poison in it, and he didn't get sick eating it. So, if prasadam is old or it's too spicy for us or whatever, the water's contaminated, is it that if we just have faith, we can eat it or drink it? And Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is not a challenge to the laws of nature. It's like, I'm going to test Krishna consciousness. How are you going to test it, Prabhu? I'm jumping off the building. I have faith in Krishna, and Krishna says he protects his devotees. So Krishna, I'm going to jump off, and no broken bones. Everything's going to be good. No, it could be true if your faith is like Prahlad Maharaj's. I don't want to undermine faith, but I don't want to be responsible for you jumping off the building to test faith. So Prabhupada's saying, be practical. Don't be foolish in the name of faith. Okay, it's a test of faith. I'm blindfolded and I'm going to walk across the street at 6:30 tonight, down on the main road, blindfolded. And if, I have faith, no one's going to run me over. So that's not the practice. No. Of course, you could say if you have faith, you wouldn't be run over. Okay, let's work on that principle. Okay, you do have faith. But what if you don't have enough? Then you might get run. If you have no faith, you get run over by 3 cars. You have more faith, 2, more faith, 1, and real faith, no cars. So, something like that. And this topic of faith it's very interesting. Because definitely the world does work according to faith. And the greater your faith, the more there is a manifestation of that faith. But Prabhupada didn't want us to be foolish and fanatical. And, let's just drive through all the red traffic lights and depend on Krishna. It's not the program. I have so much faith that I drive through red lights, no problem. That's a challenge to the laws of nature, right? Yes. Is that a challenge? Yes. Mm-hmm. To me, in my understanding, is there is a sentiment in the heart of a Vaishnava that sometimes he may not want to depend on anyone but Krishna. So he may not want to go to a doctor. So I'll just take Charnamrita and depend on Krishna. And if that's the sentiment, and the faith is that deep, and the devotee is willing to die, rather than go to the doctor, that's also, you can't really argue with that. I mean, you could argue with it, but if the devotee is that advanced, then let him do it. Why not? Yes?
In regard to the only sense gratification we are allowed is to keep the body and soul together, so that we can advance in Krishna consciousness and reach the ultimate goal.
Yes,
So if
that includes halava on Sunday.
So if we don't go to the doctor, isn't it a sin?
You know, when I go to the doctor, they say, "What are you allergic to?" And I say, "Doctors." And you're a doctor, and this is embarrassing for you. But there was a hospital, the doctors went on strike. And that time that they went on strike, less people died than normal. And you know, as a doctor, there are diseases. I forget the name for the disease that's created by the doctor. So, you know, that's also there. But I understand your question. And I think it's the same answer. That maybe you have, it's like they say that your mind is a pharmacy because it produces chemicals in the body. So you can produce happy hormones or stress hormones. And you know, stress is like, it's a real killer, isn't it? And you know, like if you laugh a lot and you, whatever that hormone is, you know, if you're stressed out, the wrong hormones. So you know, what if someone has that faith? If I just, you know, depend on Krishna and here's a story. This guy, I don't know what he had. He had some disease and he was in the hospital preparing to die. And he thought, well, if I'm going to die, I just want to like watch comedy and funny movies, you know, just die laughing. So all he did was watch funny things and he was laughing the whole time and he actually cured himself by laughing. We have the story of a godbrother, and he had leukemia, and he was doing a natural cure. And he wasn't getting the results he wanted, at least within the time frame that he expected, and he was paying money for it. And he thought, he hated to waste money. He hated to waste money. In fact, one time he stole some trousers because he didn't want to spend Krishna's money on them. He just hated to spend money. And he got arrested for it. And he went to the court, and the policeman who arrested him was in court, and he told the judge, he said, "Judge, I'm a monk, a missionary, and all the money, everything we get goes to our work." And he said, "I didn't have the heart to take that money and spend it on myself." And the cop who arrested him said, I'll pay for the trousers." And the judge declared, "This man is a saint. Let him go." So he wrote to Prabhupada and said, I've tried to cure this disease and it's just not happening, and I don't want to put all this energy into staying alive. What's the point? Spending all this money and the body's falling apart? And Prabhupada said, yes. What's the point? And Prabhupada let him just stop the treatment. And he was only maybe 38. But there was no certainty that he would be cured. So there is that sentiment. So I think it's an individual thing. You know, you may just have faith. If Krishna wants to cure me, he'll cure me. Or, you know, I'll drink Charnamrita, take Tulsi, and do Govardhan Parikrama. And, you know, if I die that way, glorious. And if Giriraj wants to cure me. So if a devotee has that sentiment and that faith, it could, you know, something could happen. Because there is a lot of, you know, stories of faith healing and people visualizing that, you know, the tumor has shrunk and it actually shrinks. And, you know, and then all the doctors like, oh, we must have mixed up your x-rays. This is impossible. One of those things. These, you know, these mystical healings and the doctors, this is impossible. We mixed up your x-rays. So that was Prabhupada's general instruction, you know, see a doctor, take care of it. This is what most devotees would do. But there are devotees who they depend so much on Krishna that it's just, they don't have that sentiment. You know, it's like It's kind of like the same question, should I go to an astrologer to see, like I'm going to start a business or whatever. I'm running into difficulty, should I look at my chart? And Prabhupada's general mood was, whatever happens, let it happen. It will depend on Krishna. So, of course, there's utility in knowing, I'm going through this period, everyone's going to reject me until the year 2021. Then I'm going to become the temple president, and everything's going to change, And Nelson Mandela had that same karma. And so it's like, okay, I know I'm going to be persecuted until 2021. So it's helpful, right? It can be helpful. But at the same time, Prabhupada's sentiment was, well, whatever happens, we'll just depend on Krishna. So I think it would be relative to, the consciousness of the person and how they want to deal with it. From your perspective, that makes sense. We should want to maintain the body to do service. But sometimes there's a sentiment like, what's the use of maintaining the body? It's so much trouble, so much time and energy. And I don't even know if I can cure it. Why don't I just chant 64 rounds a day and read Bhagavatam and just fast and die? So, that's also weird. Because you live a few years longer. It's not that much difference. So the devotee could think like that. But if these devotees are guru, he has lots of disciples, or a father, or a big family, they're depending on him, obviously that's selfish. But if he's a sannyasi or vanaprast, well, maybe not a vanaprast or brahmachari, then nobody's depending on him. So he might think like that. And let's say the body breaks down, you can't do any seva. Then the devotee will, even Prabhupada said, what's the use? I can't do anything. And all these people have to serve me, because I can't even move my body. I don't want all these people serving me, and I can't do any service, so what's the point? I'll just fast till I die. So that sentiment could be there. That's the Krishna conscious way of euthanasia, you just fast. You're at that point, you're not going to live that long, so just stop eating. Hear and chant. Go back to God. It's just the body. It's not that important. We've had millions of bodies, so which body we had in the past is important right now. And where are those bodies? Merged in the earth. So there are different sentiments, different realizations. The topic of faith is interesting because you have to act according to your faith. And so, Prabhupada came to the West. He had a lot of faith. He manifested lots and lots of faith in the different things he did. And you can't imitate that. And I think a lot of his godbrothers didn't have that faith. So they couldn't do it. They just didn't believe that Westerners could be Krishna conscious. You know what Prabhupada said? I read this purport on the airplane. I think I was the airplane coming here. He said, according to your karma, you are destined to make a certain amount of money, and it doesn't matter what you do. This job, that job, this job, that job, you're destined to make a certain amount of money. And then he said, sometimes devotees, they give their life to Krishna because they know whatever they do, they'll be maintained. And Krishna will maintain them, because that's their karma, they're supposed to be maintained. I had a business, I gave it up, I put myself out, said, Krishna, I'm just going to preach, and I'll be a Brahmin, people will support me, and that's how I live. And I actually make the same amount of money. Actually to the penny, basically. And probably someday it'll even be more. As I write some more books, one of them's bound to be a bestseller someday. Then I'll make more, or something I do. Some TED Talk that gets 10 million hits, and then people call me up, can you keynote speak for this? We'll give you crores of rupees, you're so, who knows, right? So it was such an interesting purport. He was saying, you're destined to get a certain amount, it doesn't matter what your job is. Even if you're a Brahmin, just teaching, whatever your destiny is, you'll get. You see these gurus, some of them are like fabulously rich and famous, and some, can hardly get 2 chapatis. And they're teaching the same thing. It's amazing, isn't it? Right? And one of them gives this incredible talk, just beautiful, and he gets 31 hits on YouTube, And the other one gives a nice talk, but it's not great. It was 1.5 million hits. I was figure it out. Isn't it? So faith is an interesting topic, and it's relative to your position. And my experience with faith is Krishna reciprocates with the faith. If you don't have faith, I will never be able to maintain myself unless I do A, B, and C. Then that's how it'll come out. And so now I'm going to put myself out for Krishna. I'm going to do what's right. And pray that he'll maintain me. And then he does. Or whatever it is.
Could I just add? It's just a testimony. Earlier I used to be very worried about my future, who's going to look after me, blah blah. Then when I came to Krishna consciousness, I don't bother anymore.
Because Krishna's looking after you. Right? Yes?
Yes.
Of course. Now the thing is, if you look after yourself, then you don't give him a chance to look after you. So you might think, well, he doesn't look after me. Yeah, well, he doesn't have to, because you're doing it yourself. But you get to that point when you can't look after yourself that well, then he steps in. Right? I had a business, and I had no inclination for business. I used to pray to Krishna. So I'm pretty useless for business. So, you got to do something with me. Make it happen, because I can't really make it work. So sometimes it's like that. We have some service or some challenge that we don't feel qualified for. And so it's like, Krishna, can you make up the difference? And then he sends somebody to help, or he gives you an idea, and this and that. Radhanath Swami, he was speaking at that bank, what's it called? HBBC? HSC in London. So all these big bankers and, money people. And he gets up there and he starts laughing. He said, this is so funny. You are all these wealthy bankers, and I have no money. And I'm talking to you. But that's just Krishna using, You don't, I'm sure Maharaj 30 years ago had no idea he'd be, doing those things. So, Maharaj is not like a Vaishya, like that. But he just depends on Krishna. Yeah. Krishna gives him so many opportunities. So this is my personal experience. Wherever there's a gap where you feel you can't do something, Krishna fills it up. And if you don't leave the gap and you do it yourself, then that's okay. But he can do it better. Of course, you might say, I don't want him to, I don't want to put him to work on my behalf. But if it's for seva, then it's different. I'm just a puppet, make me dance. I've come to do seva. And Prabhupada said, make my words suitable. I don't know if they'll understand Bhagavatam, make my speaking suitable. So like that, I mean, look at this. Prabhupada's going to preach Bhagavatam to the hippies. I mean, what's more weird than that? Isn't it? That's insane. Isn't it? It's speaking Bhagavatam to hippies. And more insane is that anything would happen, other than them asking him to go back to India. And it happened, so he's saying, Krishna, please make my words suitable and help them understand. And then later, Prabhupada said, he said this on several occasions, because when Prabhupada was spreading Krishna consciousness, he was seeing what was happening, because he didn't know what was going to happen when he came. It wasn't like, we say, Prabhupada said, I see temples, this and that. But that came later. Or that was his vision. But actually, he didn't really know if Americans would take it. And as they were taking to it, then he was starting to see things falling into place. So once he said, not more than once, he said, actually, all of you, my disciples, are representatives of my Guru, and he put you here in America to help me because I couldn't do this myself. That's what Prabhupada saw. Depend on Krishna, follow the order of your Guru. You have no idea this is going to happen, and you start to meet all these people who he later realizes were all devotees planted in America and Europe to take birth to help spread Krishna consciousness. And he said that many times. He said, you are representatives of my Guru. He put you here. You're all devotees from the past. So, Prabhupada's the example, when you have faith, look what Krishna does. I have a nice story. This is funny. There was a devotee, he was heading up book distribution in America. His name is Tripurari. He later became Swami, Tripurari Swami. And he was training book distributors. He kind of broke open book distribution more than anyone. So, there's a city on the southern border of the U.S. in the west coast in California called San Diego. And it's one of the main areas for the Navy in America. So there are these Navy bases everywhere. And these young men get paid twice a month. So once they're paid, they have like $400 in their pocket, and they have no overhead because they live on base, so it's just spending money. So it's a good time to distribute books because they can, afford the books. So he said, why don't we drive on a military base? And then we'll just drive around and we'll see a man and go, shh, 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 come over here. So we've got these books we're giving, And, so that was his idea. We'll just see guys walking around, and that way we won't get caught because we're just driving around. But you can't get on a military base unless you have a pass, because you can go up and blow up the whole base. How do you get on a military base unless you're authorized, right? So we're driving up to the base. I'm driving. and I said, so, how do we get on? He said, just tell them we have some books to drop off at the library. The library ordered books. So we drive up. Why are you here? Oh, we have books that the library ordered. We come to drop them. He goes, okay. And he opens the gate and we go over. So when that happened, it was like immediate. Like, just see. Someone has a desire to serve Krishna, and the gate's open. Yeah? There's another story, similar story. It's not really a story of faith. But it's a story of Krishna's desire, Krishna's will, and if he wants something, it happens. I was in Canada. I was asked to go there from America. So I was the temple president, but I had some kind of temporary visa. So I had to get a green card. And it was during the Vietnam War, and many, many, many young men from America were going to Canada, because once you got into Canada, the U.S. government couldn't draft you for the war. It was the draft. The draft is, they just pick you're going to Vietnam. So all these men were going. So it was really, really difficult to get a green card. So I talked to my lawyer. He said, we can do the paperwork, but you'll never get the green card. And I actually didn't want to stay in Canada. It was really hard running that temple. And I just wanted to go back to California. And so I thought, once I apply for the green card, they won't give it. And that way I'll have to go back to California. And I'll be happy to go back. So I did all the paperwork. But we all looked at the paperwork and we said, nah. It's not like I have 4 PhDs. I'm a good person to be in Canada. And I've got tons of money, piles and heaps, and I'm going to be spending it in Canada, and I've got so many other qualifications, speak 6 languages, this and that. So you look at my college dropout, no money, etc., etc. So it was like, there's no way they're going to let me in. And one of the tests was if you speak French, because French is spoken. And I studied French, but I forgot it. And so I went to the border, gave him my paper, and he started speaking French to me. I didn't know what he was saying, and I just said bonjour. So, and he was just laughing, speaking more French to me. I'm like, yes, yes. Oui, 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 oui. And he comes back 2 minutes later, he goes, here's your stamp, here's your visa. So sometimes things are like that. There's a will, there's an energy. Like Krishna, I guess he wanted me to be the president there at that time. So sometimes he wants something for you, So, these things also build faith. When you understand, it's like, should I do this, shouldn't I do this? Well, Krishna, let's see what he wants. And Prabhupada would say things like, I have my plans. We make a plan. We'd all sit around. And after we make the plan, Prabhupada would say, well, let's see what Krishna wants. These are our plans. Let's see what his plans are. Maybe our plans are his plans. Maybe they're not. We'll see. But definitely when he wants something, have another story. It's just so interesting. I had a godbrother I was very close with. He went to South Africa, and occasionally he would write me and tell me about the preaching there. And so there was some problem in America, and I didn't want to stay there. So I'd written him a letter and said, finally, I said, I want to come. I was a grihasta, so they couldn't really keep me in the temple. So I just wrote him and said, I want to come. Right? So after I sent the letter, I get a call, and he said, well, we just talked to the GBC, we've organized everything, so you can come here. I said, did you get my, so I said, so you got my letter? He said, what letter? Everything was arranged before he even got my letter, with all the GBC. Isn't that funny? I mean, I was in shock. I said, you didn't get my letter? I wrote you, I wanted to come over. He said, no, I didn't get your letter. And everything he arranged with all the GBC that I could come. So be careful what you think. We should stop, right? Yes? Yes? You want to ask a question?
No, I want to ask.
Yes. Whoever pays more can ask the question. They let him, he's older.
Class was mentioning one should cultivate a proper mood and chanting. The person is in a very distressed mood.
Yes.
For so many reasons, personal reasons or financial reasons or health reasons. My question is, how can you chant person?
If a person's distressed physically or financially or
What mood he should be?
what mood he should be.
How can he chant first and what mood?
How can he chant properly if there's too much anxiety? Depending, he's praying to Krishna. Like, I can't deal with this. You have to help me. I'm in your hands. That's the mood. I'm helpless. More advanced stage is Krishna, whatever you want to do. You can't imitate that, but that's a higher stage. Or Krishna, give me intelligence how to deal with this. It's another way you could be chanting. I don't know what to do. Please help me. Or you could be chanting in the mood of, I accept this as your mercy for my past sins. And you just you try to understand why it's happening. What's the message? Prabhupada said, in a lower state of bhakti, lower stage of bhakti, we would pray to Krishna to help us. And he said that praying to Krishna to help you in that situation is not pure devotional service. He said, but sometimes you have no other solution. Like you don't know how you're going to solve this problem. So you pray to Krishna, please help me with this problem. And then Prabhupada in a purport, he said, although we shouldn't ask anything for Krishna, he said sometimes householders, it's okay, because they have to maintain a family. So they might pray, Krishna, please, I need money, I don't have it, I don't know how to get it, and so forth. Please help me, I have a family of devotees to maintain. He said he might be forced like that, but it's with some reluctance to ask. There's also another mood, which is, Krishna, I know you'll take care of everything. And chanting in that mood. Like waiting for it to happen. I know, I have faith that it will work out. I'm praying it'll work out, but I have faith and I'm just waiting to see you do the work. So you're not actually asking, you're demonstrating a faith. I'm a devotee and I know it will work out. And however it works out is the best way. Now there's one situation that kind of could throw this off, is if you are actually creating those problems by doing the wrong thing. Because then it's kind of a paradox to pray to Krishna to resolve it while you're creating the problem at the same time. You know what I mean? It's, you're praying to Krishna, please solve the problem. Krishna keeps saying, please stop creating the problem. Then I don't have to solve it. Or how can I solve it if you keep creating it? So I think we need to look at that also. Like, Krishna, please, I don't have any money. Yeah, you idiot, you invested all your money in some foolish, business or stock or something. You lost it all. Now you want me to give it back? You know what I mean? So we may want to look at that also. Is it actually right? But also you can use distress as an impetus to chant good rounds. I know some devotees, when they're in distress, they chant bad rounds. But I know devotees, many devotees, or more devotees, when they're in distress, that's when they chant their best rounds, because they're most dependent on Krishna. So, like with the question of faith, it's going to depend a little bit on the advancement of the devotee, and how they'll deal with it. For me personally, my natural inclination is to visualize the situation healed with faith that Krishna will make it all work out, because I'm a devotee and I want to serve him and this is getting in the way of my service. And so I tend to just kind of visualize down the road that everything is healed, everything is better, and have faith that that's what's going to happen, because I feel that that's also a faithful way to look at it. Krishna's my protector, he's my maintainer. And I expect his mercy. That sign of surrender, I expect his mercy to work. It always works out, doesn't it? Think of all the problems. Like, at the end of your life, none of these problems are going to really matter, because they all worked out somehow or other. You're not going to remember them. Okay, can you remember the problem you had 12 years ago on this day? Who can remember it? Right? But at that time, it was a huge problem. So, he fixed it for us then. What do you think? Is the idea that when this distress hits a certain threshold, it's really difficult to focus on chanting, because you're focused on the problem too much? Is that the idea? The problem overtakes you? Something like that? I don't know, I always think of distress as like the best time to depend on Krishna. It's like you can completely take shelter of Krishna. Because you don't know how to solve the problem, Krishna. I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? You know, the Draupadi principle. When all else fails, throw your hands up in the air. Right? I tried everything, it doesn't work. Okay, Krishna. I got my hands up in the air, I'm not fighting anymore. You know, I'm depending on you. That's really the way a devotee approaches it. Requires faith, definitely. He wants to ask a question, but it's late. Tomorrow?
We can ask you a question.
Okay, he'll ask me a question. Okay. Thank you for coming. And I hope you're all going to become humble and tolerant and appreciative of the holy name and the other devotees. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Premanandi.